Hi, I'm Lisa Eddy, your host of the Sacred Beauty Lifestyle Podcast. I'm so glad that you've made your way here and that I'm now sharing these podcasts here on YouTube. In my 25 years in the beauty industry, I have worked with thousands of women. I have witnessed so many beautiful, powerful, smart, and kind women who are hiding instead of shining. My mission is to empower you to own your true power and beauty inside and out, to be truly confident and shine through your skin. Lord knows the world needs your light. I'm committed to helping you understand the choices that you are making that are working for or against you. I'll also be sharing beauty tips and tools your mother never taught you, and together we will bust urban beauty myths. Make sure to subscribe today to receive episodes right when they are released. For those who prefer listening to the audio podcast, head over to sacredbeautylifestyle.com. That's sacredbeautylifestyle.com, and you can find the platform of your choice. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Sacred Beauty Lifestyle Podcast. I am so excited to bring our guest today, Gareth Nock. Gareth is a fitness entrepreneur, a nutrition coach, a TRX master trainer, a podcast host, and he has been impacting the world of health and fitness as an award-winning coach and educator for the past 2 decades. As a fitness entrepreneur, he helps busy parents move more, eat well, and feel great. He adores being a dad and advocates for men to show up as dads without the limitations or stigma that society typically places on them. He also loves coffee, audiobooks, and being a guest on podcasts with amazing hosts. So I hope that you feel in good hands today, and I'm super happy to have you here, Gareth. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the great intro. So yeah, we've talked before, and we had a great connection, and I'm excited to expand that conversation and share it with everyone else.
Yes, me too. It's super easy to share with you. I feel like there's a really nice flow. I love so much of what you're doing. I mean, even just this little bio that I just read for our guests, there's so much to unpack here. I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about how you got here today, like being an entrepreneur, doing online fitness, helping parents. Like, what inspired you to help parents or even follow this journey yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a big question. I'll start by saying it has been a messy journey full of heaps of, I'm going to call it failure, although I like to refer to it as feedback. But so we've got a clear picture for everyone tuning in today. But there's been many failures along the way. There's been lots of mistakes. There's been lots of opportunities to learn and grow. And honestly, that's how I got here. Without all the things I'm sure we'll touch on today and all the things that have impacted my life, without those things, I wouldn't have been able to embrace all of the messiness and get to where I am. So, pretty much a short snapshot is at 17 years old as an overweight, unhealthy, miserable, 17-year-old that had struggled through teenage years, got a job as a lifeguard because it was a convenient option with some education and training provided that I'd never had before. Fast forward many years in leadership, education, fitness training, coaching, and everything in between. I'm here 22 years later, and now, very proud operator of my business with my wife. And yeah, we're just helping people like us. That's kind of why we help busy parents. We get what it's like to want to move more, to want to feel great and show up as great parents, and and nourish our bodies with food, and obviously be a role model for our child. But for all the people that are with us on this journey, they're also doing the same thing. So that's kind of the very short version of how I ended up where I am today.
Thank you. I bet people, myself included, are often shocked when you share that you were an overweight teenager. Yeah.
Yeah. It spurs a very interesting conversation, and people will typically see what they see in the present moment and not appreciate where that struggle has come from. So yeah, it's always an interesting thing to share, and I like to do it. It shares a lot of vulnerability on my part and kind of opens people's perspective of who I am as a coach as well.
It makes me curious, yes, if you also had perhaps parents that weren't into fitness and nutrition as well.
Yeah, yeah, they definitely weren't, and actually, both my mum and my dad were very busy. They were working. You know, my mum was looking after two kids all day, and then out at work at night. My dad was 12 hours a day on his feet as a car mechanic. So I think they also were in a generation where they didn't grow up with the convenience that I had. We had, you know, and people know they're in their 60s and 70s now. So I think they grew up in a world where there was a bit more scarcity around options and food and, you know, everything else we consume, you know, not just food but other things as well, media, etc. So I think they grew up in a very different place, and their lifestyle, I guess, led them to not having to worry about those things. Like, they were both very healthy because they were on their feet all day, they were moving a lot. And then came our generation where, you know, because they weren't focused on exercise and nutrition, is I just kind of was I guess I don't like the word victim, but I was a result of the world of convenience happening in the 80s, and, you know, gained a lot of weight, didn't move a lot, and, you know, and that really impacted my overall health.
That makes me think that perhaps you were also sitting playing videos in front of the TV.
Well, yeah, I hit the generation of the Nintendo fully, like when it first came out. So that was me, like, you know, early whatever that was, late 80s, early 90s. So yeah, video games, too many snacks, and I'm very grateful of the freedom I had as a kid. My mum and dad were very good at letting me kind of be curious and explore. However, that also allows you to, you know, a lot of the time eat what you want to eat, to help yourself to anything. And, you know, we all lean towards those highly palatable, delicious foods that aren't always quite so good for our weight management, shall we say?
For sure. And it's interesting because, like you said, with our parents or, that generations, that would be 60 or 70 now, we're recording in 2022. Wellness, nutrition, lifestyle talk wasn't the mainstay that it is today. It wasn't the focus.
Mhm.
And for many reasons. And they were, like you said, perhaps more active in a lot of ways, but the convenience of food really changed. And the busy lives really changed how people ate and what people ate. And that's where we started to have to look at what we're doing because of the results of obesity and disease.
Yep. Yeah, it's huge, and it's almost that, like I said, they kind of didn't have to worry about it. There wasn't the options. You kind of got what you got, and it and it allowed, without thought, it allowed for a more nourishing diet because there was a lot less. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's food processing back then in the 50s. You know, it's been around for hundreds of years, but it was a lot less processed and there was a lot less choice. So you kind of, you know, like you said, you got what you got, and it didn't allow for the, we could almost avoid all nutritional dense food in, you know, the current world we live in without any issues whatsoever. Like, it would be easy to avoid that stuff, and a lot of people do, hence the disease and the obesity and all the issues we're seeing.
You know what's so interesting though? I remember reading somewhere, I am also a parent, and I remember reading that if you put really healthy choices in front of a child, they will actually choose the healthy food, like a young kid.
Yep.
So, how did we get so far away from what was good for us?
I think there's a lot to be said, and I talk about this a lot within my, you know, like my kind of ecosystem, and, you know, the clients we have and the people we work with, about being intuitive when we come to eating. And I think this is a bit of a misused term in the world of media, and it can be very misunderstood. However, kids are very intuitive when it comes to what they eat. They look at, they lean towards what they need to be nourished, and we just lose that. Unfortunately, food processing and the convenient lifestyle that we lead has just led us so far from that, that a lot of people need lots of time to reconnect with that, right? Reconnect with what they need and how their body's nourished, because I think we just lose connection with it as convenient as life gets busier. Because as a toddler, you got all the time in the world. You sit at the table for 3 hours and pick at all the nutritious food. We just don't give ourselves that time as adults now, and I think we lose the priority of those things as we get older and other things take over. And that's why convenience food is so useful, because we got to prioritize all the other things that need to get done in life.
It's also fascinating to me while you were talking about the intuitive eating and, the convenience foods and such. It made me think, and I want to hear also what you said about intuitive eating being sort of represented today. So I want to dive into that in a second. But it also made me wonder if with intuitive eating, it's because we also have these dyes and such. Like kids would look at the color, the variety of color in food. And then here we are replicating with these really crappy, artificial, void of nutrition, convenience foods with different bright colors. That, I don't know, is there a connection there?
I think you're probably right. I think, and I've never really thought about that, but I'm sure there's some psychological reason why the packaging on a lot of processed foods for kid is purple and pink and blues and reds, and it's fun, and that's what There's no hiding the fact that food brands are using cartoon characters and stuff to entice kids. And the color is probably a lot to do with that because, yes, if you think about an intuitive style of eating, I talk a lot about eating the rainbow and just seeing, you want to make sure there's some purple foods on there, there's some green foods, there's some red foods, because there's such a mix of nutrients in all those things. And maybe as a planet, the food industry is masking that with the color of packaging, which would make complete sense. I hadn't ever really thought about that, but there might be some social media posts coming in that direction in the near future.
Yeah, it just kind of dropped in. It was very, I was having an intuitive moment, huh? I had to play with that. Can you say more about how intuitive eating might be misleading or misrepresented in press today?
Yeah, I think the big part of it is people use it as well, I want to eat it, so I'm going to eat it mentality. And I don't have a problem with that because I'm very agnostic when it comes to nutrition. If people come to me, they want to eat a certain way, they want to implement certain things around their beliefs, their habits, anything that affects nutrition. Like, I'm happy to embrace that as a coach and work with that. However, when things come up as almost a mechanism for us to excuse the behaviors that might be really detrimental to our health, and I find this happens with intuitive eating, whereas intuitive eating needs to be a little bit more leaning on the habits as well as just, well, I feel like eating ice cream today, so I'm going to eat ice cream. Great. But when that's every day, we're like, well, I just felt like it. So I ate it. Like, I get it. I'm like, but we need to be aware of things like, are these things satiating? Are they filling us up? Are they feeding our body with the nutrients that we need? Why are we craving these foods? So when there's no understanding and awareness before intuitive eating, then that's where we fall into this trap. And I think it's misrepresented. And then everyone's like, well, and then it leads these movements like, if it fits your macros, well, as long as you only eat the set amount of calories, it doesn't matter how you get there. Strictly, that is true if you're talking weight management, and this is where most things are led in the industry, is it's about fat loss, about weight loss. So yeah, sure, I can put somebody on a calorie of absolute garbage food. As long as they stay under the amount of calories they need, they will lose weight and they will lose fat. However, they're going to perform terribly. There's going to be they're not going to be satiated by any of their food, which is going to cause them then to potentially overeat. So it's not teaching sustainable habits. So I think it's that there's not enough context, and social media is terrible for this because it's 60-second videos or a quick post. So we're miscommunicating what it is. And being intuitive is being intuitive with the whole process of nutrition, right from preparing it, eating it, chewing it, choosing the right foods, noticing when your body's full. All of these things get missed, and that's where I think the miscommunication comes.
Thank you so much for explaining it because I think that intuitive eating is so important, like listening when you're full. What does my body need right now? I'll even use a pendulum in the grocery store. Now I don't need it, but when I first started like learning to really tune into what I wanted, I can now put my hand over the food and feel the energy of it because everything has a frequency, right? I can see what lights up for me. So I love that you're speaking about this because there is a learning curve and a process to really tapping in and listening to when you're full. And I also really love that you brought in that it does matter how you get the nutrients, like food for thought, literally like brain food. We're not going to be able to function at our optimal levels and also rebuilding our cells. Like, what are we going to build? You're only as healthy as your mother cell, right?
Yeah.
And if we're feeding ourselves crap, we're making crappy cells. Like, it's not rocket science. However, many people do come at it in just the way that you shared. just about the calories, just about losing weight. And it was so interesting. I'll just say a family member. I overheard a family member sharing with someone, a couple, she was teaching them how to do the intermittent fasting. It was like, oh, you don't even have to change your diet. And I'm like, oh, but you do.
Yeah. The age-old thing that gets debated a lot, and you'll see this with, you know, and social media is an absolute train wreck of information. Let's be quite honest, but there is some good stuff out there.
Yeah.
Here's where, to simplify that right down, this is what I think anyone listening today that's trying to make a difference in their lifestyle, especially if it's to do with their body composition, you know, as in, you know, muscle versus fat, and you know, and how much we weigh, is yes, all calories are the same. It's a unit of measurement. So scientifically, they are the same, but they are not all equal. So, and I think understanding that. So what I mean is 1 calorie is 1 calorie. There's 4 calories in a gram of carbohydrates. There's 4 in a gram of protein. There's 9 in a gram of fat. That's not changed for hundreds and hundreds of years. And calories are simply a unit of heat, or a unit of measurement, a unit of energy. So that won't ever change. But the quality of that is so important. And there's actually a really great YouTube. You can search it, and the guy's name is Jordan Syat. So he's another, you know, big industry professional, but does some really good work in this field. And he actually did a study, I think it was 30 days, where all he ate was like 2.5 Big Macs or something, and it worked out to be, and not trying to get anyone sued from you know, talking about McDonald's, but this was the study that he did it on, and he ate the equivalent amount. So let's say he needed 2,000 calories, he ate enough Big Macs to get to 2,000 calories. That is all he ate for like 30 days. And what he was trying to prove was he could maintain. So I think he ate in a deficit of calories. And what he showed was, I can lose fat like this. However, then he measured all the other things, right? And then he showed how the health, the hydration, his skin, his body, his organs, like all of these things that he also looked at as a metric, to say, hey, look, this is what happens to your body when we only focus on the, what people will call it as the science, which it is true. It is science, and it is clear, and it, you know, metrics are important, but there's so much more to that. And I think that's really important for anyone embarking on this journey of improving their health.
It was such a great example. Thank you for bringing that in. And I love that you even shared that one of the markers he showed decreased was hydration, because I'm such a huge proponent of getting people to drink water. It's like the one thing I think I preach perhaps the most, because I think it's left out or not understood. And that also depends on the quality of water. And that's another topic. However, when you are eating crappy, or you are eating more sugar, you're eating things that are harder for your body to process and break down, it's going to use up more of its resources, water being a primary resource. So you actually use more water when you don't eat as well.
Yeah. Yeah, people kind of think it's like a sub condition of people's nutrition. And when I run in the program that I run, for the most part, it is group based nutrition coaching, is exactly that. Like, we have a whole week where it's just about hydration. Like, we just talk about water, and people are like, is that important? I'm like, yeah, your body's like 60 to 70% water. Yes, it's important. It's like one of the most important things. And, you know, and knowing how much, you know, not just thinking, oh, well, I think I need to drink 8 glasses of water a day, like actually knowing why it's so important. You know, to everything, like you said, right down to like cellular level in your body, water is important. And people really miss why it's so important. And it also comes to things like, you know, being satiated when you eat, and making sure your body's hydrated, and how it balances out your stomach and your digestive system. Like, it's so complex, and there's so much to it. People miss that. And you know, not to mention all the other benefits as well.
Yeah, like glowing skin.
Yeah.
As one of them, energy levels. Okay, we'll leave it at that. Clearly, I think we're making a very strong point here for water.
Yeah.
You mentioned something, and I love this term about being nutritionally agnostic. And I also love that you shared that you love coffee. I too love coffee. And I think that this can kind of go into the conversation about nutritionally agnostic, because I think some people think that they have to give up everything, or I don't know. I'd love to hear you speak about what nutritionally agnostic means, and your thoughts on like the bringing in and enjoying certain foods that are important to you.
Yeah, this is so important. And what I've learned in the last 2 decades is, people will not stick with something that is unrealistic from a longevity standpoint. And that's the reality. The world we live in is way more complex than, like I said, right? Units of measurement, calories in, calories out. Yes, it's important. However, it's not. That's not the world we live in, and it's so important that we understand the complexity and the depth of our habits revolved around food. So I'll share a little bit of the history of nutritionally agnostic. So I have done many certifications on nutrition, etc., in the past and studied lots in these topics. However, I'll credit where that came from, and it's from a company called Precision Nutrition, which is a company that I did a certification with, and many other coaches. It's the leading nutrition coaching certification in the world. And if anyone that's looking to delve into this in their world, maybe, or along their journey, I would definitely recommend them. Then they're not paying me or anything, but just very good from a behavioral standpoint. And it's the whole course is geared around, like, it starts there. You think it would start with nutritional science, but it doesn't. It starts with behavioral change and habit. And what I really learned from that term was that everything I kind of had found out in the past 2 decades, which is that people come from, you have to meet people where they're at. And sometimes people are at a place where let's just use it as an example because it's popular, the keto diet is part of their identity and it's the way in which they eat, or intermittent fasting is giving them so many benefits. My job as a nutrition coach is to meet the person where they're at and be agnostic in the sense that if that's the way you like to eat, great. Let's build your education around why you feel certain ways, why this is beneficial, and dispel myths. Instead of me saying, well, intermittent fasting's, it's BS, don't do it. There's no point because all it's doing is reducing the amount of calories you eat. It doesn't help anybody. Me saying, great, you know what? This is a really solid, let's have a look at what's contained in your, let's say it's 8 hours a day where you eat. For example, if it's nutrition, if it's intermittent fasting, that's a typical structure that people like a 16-8. What are you doing in those 8 hours? Let's break that down. If somebody says, well, I'm eating balanced, protein, fats, and carbs, and I'm getting hydrated, and I've got these good habits, I'm only eating till I'm 80% full, and I'm chewing my food, and I'm like, great, this sounds awesome. Let's just continue doing what you're doing, and if it works for you, it works for you. If they're coming to me and saying, well, I'm eating in my 8 hour window, but because it's such a short amount of time, then I'm snacking all night and breaking my fasting window because I'm hungry. Great. Well, you're probably not getting what you need in the day. So let's assess that. So it's not about me pushing my beliefs. I am pushing nutritional science and education because that's where I'm certified. However, I'm making that fit into their belief structure and helping them understand why this is effective for them, why it's been successful, and maybe expanding their belief a little bit to see that there's other ways that you can do things to balance your lifestyle. But sometimes it's just me meeting them, they're doing exactly what they're doing, we just tweak it a little bit, and then they continue on their way and they're successful forever. So it really is just me trying to meet them, like I said, meet them exactly where they're at, and then just expand it for them, expand that experience from where they currently are.
Yeah, I love that. I think that is so important. And I also really like the way that you don't make them bad or wrong for it, but rather look at and see what you're getting. Because we do things because we have needs. Like us, everything we do is because of a sacred need that we're trying to have met, right? Like a lot of our habits and lifestyle choices you probably see because you also work in habits and seeing people's choices that they make. There's something that we're trying to get met, right? So then it's like, okay, are you having it met? Right. And it's beyond the nutrition, what the nutrients that we're getting, even though that is a huge component, right? I think that so many times there's this, like, I think we talked a little bit about when we talked before and couldn't stop talking, this kind of black and white and an extremist way of being that just doesn't fricking work.
Yeah, that is my life. That is 22 years of my life, exactly that. And to be honest, my own personal, journey, like that wave through that journey, like I've been in that place. I've gone into places where this is the only way to train, this is the only way you're going to get results, and this is the only way you should be eating. Like, I've been through that journey. I am quite frankly horrified by some of the things that I implemented in my own health and nutrition, but also to clients. Like, I have this quite regularly. I have this moment where I'm like, I was a really terrible trainer. And and I'm sure there was huge. I'm sure these people got benefits, and I'm sure they wouldn't look at it like that if I reached out to them now. But sometimes I think I need to send them all a message and apologize because, but we have to go through that. We all go through that, and it is such an extreme approach that people have, and it's that black and white. It's not. Success and life is in the gray, in the middle, and or as I like to call it, the color of life. Black and white are shades. So get out of the black and white, either end of that scale. Get in the middle where the color and the life is, and let's try and live our lives as the best versions of ourselves, and know that that's in the colorful plate. The best version of myself is not on the extreme end of anything. That isn't how life works. No one can maintain that and sustain that. So let's get in the middle. Let's get where it's fun and it's exciting and it's fulfilling, and we can keep going and keep doing it for years and years and live a great life when we take our last breath. That we appreciate that and we see it for enjoying it and living fulfilling, not living in restriction and extremes.
Yes, that's fully living. I love that. I know that you too subscribe to the 80/20 rule. Yeah, if you're good most of the time, and that's where that like kind of permission to have these indulgences and really live and it be part of our lifestyle. I wonder if there are any myths you can bust. Like are there any one or two things that drives you bonkers that you hear or that is being taught right now and you're like, please stop, just stop.
I mean, I think we kind of touched on it just then.
Yeah.
Is the one way to do things. That's
Mm.
the biggest myth, right? Because and I think what probably actually makes me a bit more irate is it worked for me, so therefore it's the best way to do something. That's probably the thing that drives me the most, up the wall, because just because and I'm not saying these things don't work for people, but it's not for everybody, and anything that's that extreme is not sustainable. Big things I see right now are certain types of training. So you have to do hit-based training to get in the best shape of your life, or you need to be doing powerlifting for you to be the strongest person you've ever been, or you need to eat carnivore only diet because everything else is toxic. It really, none of those things are the best at anything, and that's the biggest thing I think. And I don't know if that's a myth or an approach, but
Mhm.
that would be my biggest thing that yeah, really makes me irate. If I could get rid of that in the world, I think we'd all be a bit more successful.
Yeah, and kind of the extremist is what I'm hearing you say too. And I see a lot of fear-based tactics being used that, you know, kale will kill you or something like that. I saw, and it's like if you eat certain vegetables raw, that, they have side effects and that they could be problematic and interfere with thyroid or different things for certain people, right? Like spinach, I think comes to mind as not being a good idea to have raw for certain people. Or anyhow, the extreme approach of making these grandiose statements to catch attention, that sort of drives me bonkers.
And it's true. The scare tactic thing is exactly that, right? That's the oh, this is don't eat vegetables; they're toxic. Well, shocker, everything you eat's toxic. That's it's that, right? Or it's so many chemicals. Yeah, go look at the chemical compound of a piece of fruit, and you'll see how many chemicals are in it. But it's a piece of fruit, so everything is full of chemicals. So yeah, I wouldn't lean too much into that. And remember, our bodies have evolved. Like we didn't get here overnight. It's millions of years of evolution, and what's happened in that as our bodies have learned to cope with that. Our bodies are meant to cope with stress. Toxins are stress, chemicals are stress, but we need them. Just like the weight you lift in the gym on your squat is stress. It's stress you need. Too much of it, you break. Not enough of it, you then get the opposite. Then you become weak. So we're taking on stress. That can be, it could be work stress. It could be physical stress, mental, emotional. We need a little bit of stress. We just don't need too much. So
Mm.
know that's really important. Our bodies have got here. Like we didn't get here by accident, right? So I think that's important for people to understand. And let's not try and alleviate all the stress from our lives, because then we're just, I don't know, sitting around doing nothing.
Thank you. Agreed. Okay, so we do have a lot of female listeners about mid-age, like pre-menopause or going through menopause. And I wonder if you can answer a question on working out for our listeners that a lot of times we hear going into your late 40s, early 50s as a woman, if you're not already lifting weights that you need to. And a lot of times, self included, don't really love lifting weights like Pilates, dancing, or these different. Do you have a general um, message that you could share in that regard?
For sure. I will pre-frame this by saying definitely not my area of expertise, but I will share
Mhm.
my thoughts on it because I think it's important. When it comes to strength training, I will give you a blanket statement. Everybody needs to be doing some sort of strength training. This is so important, and it's important for so many reasons. The metabolic processes in your body, your strength and your stamina, your posture, your ability to get on with life, and the longevity needed for that. So I think everyone needs to be strength training in some capacity, whatever that looks like. However, to your point, is you got to find something you enjoy to do, because and that's not. I'm not saying it needs to be easy. That's a big misconception that I get as well. It's not, I'm not smiling the whole way through it, and it's not easy. Well, it shouldn't be, but it should be something that you enjoy. You enjoy the physical act of it. You enjoy the process of it. You enjoy the results of it. So find something you love to do. Not everybody needs to be a power lifter, but at the same time, we don't just want to be doing high impact cardio all the time either.
Yeah.
So that's my first thought. That was a bit more of a statement stroke rant. Now, in regards to kind of menopausal, premenopausal, again, I would say, first of all, I would say if this is someone listening that is looking for that, definitely look for a fitness professional that specializes in that. And I'm going to say, probably for the most part, someone in your environment who is going through that, right? And a lot of the great trainers out there that I've seen are ones that are premenopause or going through menopause or have been through it, to understand that. And that's a big part. That's why I work with busy parents, because I'm a busy parent, right? So that's important because they're way more specialized than me. However, what I will say is it takes a little bit more mindfulness because of the hormone fluctuations that happen, meaning every day won't be your strongest day. Every day might not be the day for lifting really heavy or lifting at all and doing any strength based work. And you're going to have to really pay attention to things like, and this is even prior to menopause, just your menstrual cycle alone is going to affect how you perform, and the kind of stresses that you want to put on your body, because you're going to feel strong at certain parts of the cycle, you're going to feel weaker at certain parts of the cycle. So going for PRs and the heaviest lifts in a certain part of your menstrual cycles is not a great idea, because it's not going to leave you feeling very satisfied with the outcome. So the same comes when you get into like perimenopause and menopause, is that's going to fluctuate even more, because there's even more fluctuations, right? Things like body temperature, hydration, strength based work. So I hesitate to be any more specific than that because it's not my area of expertise, but there's all the things to consider.
I love your answer. And I'm sorry I put you on
No.
I put you on the hot seat for something that isn't quite your expertise, though you gave a great answer and I think that's helpful. And I also want to talk about your area of expertise and kind of maybe how it is that you help these parents, because it seems like you're helping them online, like you have an online academy, and how that came about. I understand a lot of people do put off working out when they're parenting, and so I'd love to hear a little bit about this.
Yeah, for sure. Well, what I kind of realized as a parent, now I have a 6-year-old, just coming up 6-year-old daughter, so that's a whole other podcast episode right there. So I won't go too much into that. But what I realized as becoming a parent is I had a lot less ability. I don't know if ability is the right word. A lot less ability to be selfish with my time when I became a parent. I didn't have as much free time to hit those long endurance based workouts, to be in the gym. My gym visits would be 2.5 hours from leaving the house to getting ready, to lifting, to cooling down, to taking a shower, to getting home. And I could go out and do that. I'd head off in the weekends, early in the morning while my wife was asleep, and I'd spend 2-3 hours just kind of out and cruising through it. And it was so easy to, and this sounds, no one give me any comments on this, but it was easy to be in shape. It was easy because I had so much time to prioritize it. When I became a parent, that disappeared. And it was 15 minutes here, 10 minutes there. Can I go out and work out and then we'll switch halfway? Or, can I time it with the daycare that's available at the gym? And it just got really challenging to fit it in, and I really fluctuated. And as you heard at the beginning of the episode, I struggled a lot with my weight as a kid. I've had some real disordered behaviors around exercise and nutrition that I work on every day. So for me, it wasn't wasn't difficult to fall back in that trap. So I had to be really mindful of that and, kind of coach myself a little bit. And what I realized was it needed to be, to cut a long story short, it needed to be convenient for me to fit it in. Then pair that realization over a couple of years together with how the world changed drastically over the last 3 years, bring all those things together, and as if magic, this creation happened, which is the Nock Academy. And what we do is deliver a convenient and efficient way for people to move. And it isn't like we do parenting exercises, like you've got to this is how you pick your child up. Like, it's nothing that specific. It's just general movement, which, to be honest, is the same as it's been for hundreds and hundreds of years. Like, we're still doing the same movements. It's very simple. And we give people access to this via a click on their laptop or a click on their cell phone or their tablet, where they can join a workout 2 minutes prior. They can get up and come downstairs in their pajamas and do it in their basement or their spare room, before their kids wake up. They can fit it in their lunch break if they're working from home or they're shooting out, if they do have access to a gym or environment to work out. And also for those parents that are getting up in the beginning of their days front loaded and they're dropping their kids at school, we then give them the ability to come back and get that movement in for the day. So that's predominantly what we do. And what I mean by that is literally our schedule is like 6:30 a.m., 9:30 a.m. and 12:10. Like these are the times, right? And we know because we've also tried putting stuff on in the evening, and guess what? All the parents were too tired to come. So we took it off and we got rid of it. And then I was like, well, I don't really want to do it either, so let's not do it. And we didn't initially start with that focus when we started the business, but then we realized, hey, you know what? We don't want to do that. So probably the people like us don't want to do it. So we then shifted into the time where we could really access people. A lot of people now work from home, so it's even more suitable for them. And it just means, like I just finished, before we logged on to chat, I just finished coaching a 30-minute strength workout with about 10, I think there were men and women there that kind of dropped in their lunch break, got that 30 minutes in. They could have their 1 hour lunch break. They got time to get ready, to work out, grab a shower, grab something to eat and get back to their desk. So that's really what we're doing. And then on top of that, we do some functional movement training and some nutrition and lifestyle coaching. And again, we just try and make it convenient and make it fit. Like, our online program is all via messages and emails and, some one-on-one time, but it just fits into people's lifestyles. So that's a very long answer to what we do, but that's kind of how we found it and where we are now.
I love it. And your needs were reflecting the people that you were serving. Yes, parents are not really available to do much in the evening other than parent and feed their children and bathe them and get them to bed because it's so much work, right?
Yeah. And we're just done afterwards, right? We're done. Like, you're done. Like 7:30 is like bedtime, and we're in bedroom at 7 p.m. We leave there at 7:30. Like, I've got time to maybe reply to a few emails I missed. Maybe if I'm feeling good, I'll make a tea and jump on my foam roller, but that's about my capacity at that time of night. And by 9:30, I'm in bed.
Right, because you also want to feel good and you want to feel rested, and I think that's really wonderful what you're doing, because it does help. I imagine the accountability to, like, having other people, like working on in a group sometimes, I think is helpful for people, and that sense of community. Community does build immunity, and it's one of the things we've realized during this period, as you mentioned. I think that we need more than ever.
Yeah. I think it's so easy to fall in the trap of comparing ourselves to others and thinking that someone's got the magic answer. And this goes kind of back to what, the myths in the world is, someone's got the magical answer for us to get results. I know, you know what? Everyone's struggling to navigate life. Let's just try and find some people that we can struggle alongside. And, I always laugh. I've got one of our members that always comes on, and her favorite thing is to come off of mute on the workout and say, yep, I agree with you. Remember, misery likes company. She's like, so while I'm here being miserable in my condo doing my workout, I've got some other people here to be miserable with me and moan about how hard it is. But the truth of it is that, and that sometimes is what, when people go, well, community, it sounds a bit like, a bit woo-woo to have a community. But I'm like, but that's community. That's just other people struggling through stuff, right? If someone else is really, pushed to get up in the morning, but they know someone else is there, they know someone else is getting up. How often I hear that from people, like I wouldn't have logged on if I didn't know, this such and such person was coming as well. They messaged me last night and said they were coming, and you know, it's outside of that live session we coach. It's also these people are connected and they're building friendships, and these people are in different provinces and different countries, and they're still connected. So we're just finding like-minded people to surround ourselves with, to support us on whatever struggles we have on our own journey.
Yeah, that is definitely the beauty of the internet. And like how you're logging in from Canada,
Yeah.
and I'm here in the Bay Area, Northern California.
Yeah.
So it has been so fun sharing with you. I seriously feel like we could talk and talk and talk. And there's so many questions I still have for you. I'll give you one that I'd love for you to share is what is your big message that you would scream from a mountaintop that you want the whole world to know?
Oh, one. Okay. So I'm gonna break. Can I break it into two parts? I'm gonna break the rules.
You
Okay.
can make your own rules. You got it.
Perfect. I'm liking this more and more. Okay. So the number one thing that I would scream from the rooftops for everyone, and everybody needs to hear this, and this is also a message to myself. If you want to get wherever you're going, okay, and we'll just leave it as that because that is ambiguous, but it's meant to be. So whoever's listening right now, wherever you're trying to get, the way you're going to get there is by being consistent. That's it. Consistently show up. It's not, nobody is doing anything perfectly in life. And if they are, they're not doing it consistently. Be consistent. It doesn't matter what it is, wherever you're trying to get, whatever goal you're trying to achieve, be consistent. Now, to be consistent, you need to start. Starting is scary. Starting anything is scary. So I'll wrap it up with a favorite quote of mine, which is so important when you start anything, fitness journey, business, study, school, whatever you're embarking on, and whatever you have to start to get where you're going. Before you can be consistent, you have to be brave. And something I learned a few years ago, which has completely changed my life, is this following quote: bravery is not the absence of fear, it is taking action in spite of the fear.
I love that. Is that Mark Twain?
I think it might be, yeah.
I think I have I have that on a card somewhere. That's a great quote. Thank you. And consistency really is key. It's like it's not rocket science. You have to just actually stay on the road. You stay on the journey and keep showing up. I love it. And I know you have a podcast also. I'd like to share the name of the podcast so our guests know they can find you at the Knock Knock Who's There podcast.
Yes, that naming that podcast is one of my proudest moments in life.
It's a pretty good play on your name, brother.
So yes, yeah, that's our business podcast that we run, and we like a little bit of a unique. It's playful, but it's also if anyone tunes in. What we love to do on the show is actually bring our members. So our members that join us for other online workouts, they come on and they share their stories. So it's really about not curated conversations, but bring our members on, tell us a little bit about what you're struggling with and how you ended up here working out with us, and how it's impacted you. So it's kind of like it's almost like my pushback against the before and after pictures that are posted all over the internet. Not that I necessarily have, I don't hate them completely. I feel like they have a place sometimes, but they don't paint a picture. So what I tried to do is find a medium in which to paint the picture of what success and failures really look like in people's journeys in health and fitness.
Oh, I love that. Real people's journeys. That's how we learn and grow is through beautiful conversations like this. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I love the work that you're doing. Thank you for sharing your time and the wealth of information with us here today on the Sacred Beauty Lifestyle podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Well, thank you. Always, I do like to talk, but particularly about things I'm passionate about. So whenever I'm given that opportunity, I'm massively grateful. So thank you so much.
I'm Lisa Eddy, your host of the Sacred Beauty Lifestyle podcast, which is now being shared here on YouTube. I hope this episode brought you insights and inspiration to radiate and shine with confidence. Remember to subscribe so you receive new episodes hot off the press right when they are released. And follow me on Instagram for more juicy tips at I am Lisa Eddy. Also, ladies and gentlemen, when you subscribe, like, and share these episodes, it helps me to get seen by more people. And that means a lot to me because I am committed to reaching millions of women across the globe and waking them up to the sacred beauty lifestyle, owning their true power and beauty, both inside and out. Now more than ever, we need more women shining instead of hiding. When we band together, we are unstoppable. This is how we change the world, together. Remember the sacred beauty lifestyle and get on out there and shine. The world needs your light.